Hey, I'm Scott Penfold, and thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Loaded Radio podcast. I'm going to be talking with Sean Killian, frontman for the band Vio-Lence. Yes, I'm talking some serious classic San Francisco Bay Area thrash. Vio-Lence is back. I mean, this is cool. The last studio release that Vio-Lence released would have been back in 1993 with the Nothing to Gain album. They have a new EP called Let the World Burn, which is going to be dropping. And yeah, I can't wait to hear new stuff from Vio-Lence. I've heard a couple tracks and it sounds great. So it's going to be awesome talking with frontman Sean Killian from that band about so much. Of course, we're going to talk about the old San Francisco Bay Area thrash days. We're going to talk about, the current lineup of the band, maybe some other people that have been in the band before that we know of. So we'll get into that. And as well, in the second portion of the podcast, I'll be talking to Little Radio's own Johnny Rude as he joins us live from Las Vegas, Nevada. And we go over just the week that was in hard rock and metal and anything poignant in heavy music. We'll be discussing that, okay? So by all means, stick around for that. First off, don't forget you can download the Loaded Radio app either at loadedradio.com in the app section or wherever you get your apps. That gives you access to all of our podcasts, the 24/7 live radio station, and tons of hard rock and metal news updated constantly, and so much more. So check that out. And make sure you follow this podcast, whether it be on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or even right at loadedradio.com, just so you can get it delivered to you weekly when it comes out. Okay, but enough of that stuff. Let's talk to this guy here. I'm talking, of course, about Sean Killian. He's the frontman for Vio-Lence. They've been around since '85. They were part of the San Francisco Bay Area thrash scene. They've been called one of the big six of Bay Area thrash metal, along with their counterparts in Exodus, Testament, Death Angel, Laz Rocket, and Forbidden. And yeah, man, the band is Vio-Lence, a brand new EP coming out called Let the World Burn on March 4th. Sean, thanks so much for hanging out right here on the Loaded Radio podcast.
Scott, good, man.
First off, how you feeling? How are things been over the pandemic for you?
Pretty good. I got the COVID back in August and got through it. And I feel fine now. It took me about a couple weeks to recover,
Did it really took you a bit of a time, eh?
Yeah, well, I was in the hospital for about 7 days on my third week of having COVID. Wow. I started having some difficulty breathing and I was just like, well, I got to go in and see these guys because, with my past medical history, I have to take immune suppressants. So I'm there taking my immune suppressants while on COVID going, well, this can't be a good combination. Eventually this is going to catch up to me.
No, of course, man. Yeah.
So I spent 7 days just kind of cycling through the antibiotics and steroids, but I probably could have been out in like 4. So I feel great now.
As long as you're okay, man, that's great. That's all that matters, right?
All I wanted to do was try to sleep, but I was having a hard time sleeping. That was the worst of it.
That would be a nightmare for me too, buddy. Now, getting into the new album, rather the new EP, this is really exciting. I think this is really cool that we're getting some new stuff from Vio-Lence. Was it a result of the pandemic, really, that you guys really got together and did this?
Well, after we got back together to play the reunion show in Oakland in April of 2019, Sacred Right contacted us. We finished their tour, the last 2 shows, and Phil and I were in Mesa after sound check. We just started chatting about, we should write some new music. Things are going good, but you can only live on your old music for so long playing live. So we decided, well, let's do 4 songs and see how it goes. And what would that look like? Well, it's got to be as heavy as Eternal Nightmare and Oppressing the Masses, and we got to be aggressive. And so he and I basically write the songs. Perry's in the studio with us. And so when the pandemic did hit, we couldn't play any shows. That gave us all that time to start really writing and being in the studio, because I have a little small 24-track recorder. So we were able to do stuff and record it. And then I could write lyrics and, some song patterns. And so as we started writing, we started getting better. Flesh from Bone was the first song we wrote. 4 songs turned into 5 because we kind of got on a roll. We were doing good. We actually, I need to go to Trident Studios to do some demo recording for vocals on another song we've written.
Was there ever talk of it actually becoming a full album?
No, because he and I, it was just like, man, we take on this big burden of 10 songs or 12 songs, and then we got to go through. We need a proper budget for that. So then we're going to have to go out and negotiate with different labels. And,
right.
It was kind of like, well, if we do just an EP, then We can just go to a label, get what we need to record and nothing more. So we don't go into huge debt with these guys.
Yeah.
And then we didn't do any kind of shopping around. Brian Schlegel was at the Psycho Fest we played in 2019.
Yeah.
He and Phil talked, and that turned into us working with Metal Blade because I said, Brian Schlegel's been around since the beginning, thrash. And it was like, well, every other label we've been on liked us and then hated us or whatever, because we didn't record every album we recorded was on a different label.
Speaking of labels, I guess you heard about the passing of John Zazula recently.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, were you guys close?
Not really. It was more of a business relationship. One time that Johnny Z and I talked for an extended period of time was when he wanted me to re-record the vocals for Oppressing the Masses.
Oh, really? Did he?
I didn't understand what I was saying. We're not Anthrax. We've never been Anthrax. So I think he was with them in LA when they were recording one of their records and was like, yeah, well, I'm not that. And this is who we are. And this is who you signed. And
tell me about the song Flesh from the Bone. What can you tell me about that one?
So Flesh from Bone, it's kind of like I was kind of studying and researching Vlad the Impaler and
cool.
Yeah, and that era of history and what it was like to live under such an individual. Because if you talk to the people of Wallachia, if you go there, he's like a legend, right? So, but during his reign, you didn't want to be on the wrong side of what was considered the law, because you weren't going to do a week in jail. You were going to be impaled. I just kind of had the viewpoint of, okay, what if this society today was suddenly thrust into the 1400s? I mean, how many would make it? Kind of like that concept in my mind, and the history of Vlad and his warfare and how he basically used fear as a tool to win battles against much larger, forces than his. Yeah, it just kind of intrigued me.
And great content as well. I mean, I know that it's been touched on before in the genre, but your view in it is very cool. So that's awesome.
Thank you. And
how about the title track or Let the World Burn? Like, what can you tell me about that one?
Well, Let the World Burn, because it's funny because when I write stuff, it's usually my mind is set in the current times, so Oppressing the Masses, the Tiananmen Square thing was going on at that time. Right. And so Let the World Burn, there's all this fuss and everybody gets mad and, political correctness and everything. But, if there was like a cataclysmic extinction event, and, none of us would be remembered. None of it would be remembered. It wouldn't mean anything to the future, and you would just be forgotten, unless maybe 10 million years from now, the Earth's inhabited again and they find your fossils, and all these worries and all this conflict really, how important is it?
Absolutely right. Like a grander view of things, man. You're absolutely right. You just hit the nail right on the head there, I think, man. And it's kind of a terrifying thought too, if you think about it.
Yeah, but it's happened several times in the history of this planet.
Look at the lineup of the band. You got Bobby Gustafson and you got Christian Olde Wolbers in there now as well too. How's it feel with the new guys in there?
It's great. Bobby and Perry, they were friends for a long time. So when we wanted to make a change, he was like buddies. And so we knew, can he play guitar? Well, of course, that's not even part of the question. But for us, it's like, okay, because does he fit in with the rest of us? And he's our age. He's a year younger than I am, actually, by a day. Oh, really? His birthday is July 15th. Mine's July 14th. Okay. And Christian was the same. And Christian was a fan of the band when he was back in Belgium. His experience with Vio-Lence was Oppressing the Masses. Not so much Eternal Night, but he listened to Oppressing the Masses a lot. And so he was kind of, because we're a love us or hate us kind of a band. So especially back then. Right. And he was kind of he loved the music and everything, but he was like that rebel, I listened to Vio-Lence, and so when Dean he just couldn't commit his time to what we needed to, that we needed from him to accomplish what we just will be releasing in March 4th. Phil talked to Christian, and Christian was like, just, because he's a fan, he's like, oh, fuck, I'm there. I'm there. And so he can play that bass, really good.
He was great in Fear Factory.
Oh, yeah. Dude, he's done stuff with Cypress Hill and Snoop and, toured with Korn. And so, again, he's a musician. You don't have to worry about his ability. It's like, so do we all get along, And we do. We get along great. We just did a video, and, when you're filming stuff, it takes all day and you're only working maybe 20 or 40 minutes of that day.
Yeah.
And so, we're all hanging out together and we just have a good time.
That's cool, man. That's good to have that for sure. You mentioned Dean Dell. So what was it with Dean? Is it that he couldn't commit? Was it his decision to leave? Well,
Dean's job is kind of like, he doesn't know what he's doing, what he does tomorrow until today. And so it was like, well, we can't really operate around that, Dean. I mean, this is writing, and we might we might be in the studio together, practice studio together on Tuesday. And then we might get together again Thursday, or maybe Friday, or maybe Saturday. It depends on if I could write lyrics, and if I have enough, written, that I can come in and actually try to work, practice it and work it into the song. And so his job and his life commitments, just wouldn't allow him to make that time. So
I see.
We didn't want to leave. We didn't want him not to have Dean, but it was just kind of a logistical thing.
Sure, understanding. And it's still really cool that, it's you, Perry, and Phil that are in there still. Did you guys keep in contact over the years before reuniting?
Phil and I did a lot. I didn't really talk much to Perry, but Phil and I would talk occasionally, when he was in Machine Head, because we were still getting royalty checks from Eternal Nightmare. And so we would talk business and then just shoot the shit. So, and those conversations were cool because I think, it gave Phil someone that he could talk to that wasn't in the business anymore. So, did the business.
Oh, yeah, I understand that for sure, man. Back in 2018, I think a really significant time with the concert that was put on in your honor, recovering from cirrhosis of the liver, which you did recover from, which I think is fantastic. But looking back, would you say that out of a bad situation came something great with, the sparks or something coming from the ashes to bring Vio-Lence back together?
Yeah, what's funny is I was getting told, hey, you want to hear who's going to be doing this? Or I was like, you know what? I don't want to hear anything. I just want to show up and be surprised, because it's one of those things where people are doing something like that for you. I just kind of wanted to see what it was when it was. And I think it did. And the crazy part too is that I'm standing there backstage and Chuck's there. He's saying Torture Tactics.
Yep.
And it was 2001 when we were all together doing Thrash of the Titans to help him out. And you kind of saw this full circle thing where, Vio-Lence came back after 9 years to play the Thrash of the Titans to support Chuck. And then, 15 years later, Chuck's there on stage supporting me. And it just kind of was a cool thing, all around for everybody. And, Tom Huntley, was dealing with cancer, and people came together and did benefits show for him. And so it's kind of a cool thing that, we're all supporting each other. And that in my mind triggered me to think of, how do I repay these people? And so 10 months later after my surgery, it was like, well, hey, Phil, let's do a show. Because when I woke up after my surgery, all I could think about was, okay, I need to play a show with Vio-Lence songs. And what does that look like? Because Phil was still in Machine Head at the time.
Yeah.
And so, when he was available, I just was like, oh, I got to jump on it now before he joins another band that can't do this. But that turned into what we have coming out March 4th.
So that's cool how it all sort of came about that way, man. And so what did you get? Did you get a new liver, or what exactly happened? Like, how did you recover?
So what I had was this, what they call alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. And alpha-1 antitrypsin is a protein that cleans the toxins from your lung cells and your liver cells.
Okay.
My body didn't produce it. It was a genetic thing. I didn't get the right chromosomes from my mom and dad.
Yeah.
So my body didn't produce it. So that's what happened to cause my problem. And then it was just, I had to change doctors until I got hooked up with UCSF, and they have a living donor program. So I didn't, you have to be on the list to enable to inactivate the living donor program. And the crazy part is my brother-in-law was a match, and we didn't even know he was testing or doing anything. And so he contacted us and said, hey, I'm a match. And I was like, wow. So we did the living donor transplant. He went in. We both went in the operating room together. He went under surgery at about 7 a.m., 7:30, and I went in at about 9. removed 63% of his liver. And crazy part is my surgeon is the head of the transplant board for UCSF, and his wife is also the joint head. And so she took the liver out of my brother-in-law, the 63%, and he put that 63% into me. So
wow, man.
Fair with them. And I was in surgery for about 11 hours, 12 hours. And they didn't wake me up for a few days. I went in Monday. I woke up at like Wednesday at night at 8:00 at night.
Oh, that must have been surreal. Wow, man. But that's one hell of a brother-in-law you got there, man.
Yeah, his whole, because he and I talked, and he was just like, look, I don't want to see my nephew and niece, not have their father. And we actually had two people that were being worked up at the same time, him and Beth Reisner, an old friend of mine. And he just he's retired from the Air Force engineer, and he's always lived a really clean life. So the doctors chose him over Beth.
Yeah. Well, good call though on that one. Getting back into, I guess, the bit of the history, is there any relationship or talk with Rob Flynn at all?
Yeah, I was just texting him the other day. I text him, I talk to him. Yeah. He and I text occasionally. He's a good guy. I mean, I'm friends with both of them,
Yeah. So, but was there ever
for him too, man? The success he's had is like unbelievable.
Oh, he's done. Yeah, Machine Head's been amazing. But when Vio-Lence first got back together, I mean, there must have been at least a fleeting thought, who's going to call Rob, wasn't there?
Well, when Phil and I talked, Rob was kind of a question for Phil for sure, and just because of their history.
Yeah.
I would never count Rob out myself because I like the guy a lot and he's a good friend. But I did call him when we booked the show and told him, whatever your history with Phil is between you two, but I really want to see you at the show. It'd be important to me because you helped support me to get to this point.
Yeah.
He made shirts and sold shirts to raise money, and so he was there with Ginevra, his wife, and I was just really happy to see him there. But yeah, we talked.
That's cool. So do you think that maybe at one point in the future he might join you on stage for a song or something at one point, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Here's the situation with Vio-Lence, right? We're kind of a club, and if you put all the members of Vio-Lence in a room, there'd probably be about 12 of us today. So Phil, he really is a professional musician, a guitar player. I do this because I love it, and I love to play in front of people, and I like to create. And I don't know if you know this all, but Phil was on stage with Lamb of God on that last cruise, that metal cruise.
That's right. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's done some stuff with Overkill, and so he's usually on stage with us, but probably not going to always happen. But we do have a excellent backup, because it's someone that's like, I want to be on stage and experience the Vio-Lence experience, And so we have great people that'll step in, and we've already worked with some of them because there's going to be some shows this year that Phil's doing something else while we're doing our little club shows. Yeah, if that ever happened, I would love to have Rob on stage with me.
It'd be cool to see that lineup, that classic lineup, even just for a couple songs, right?
Yeah, and it's always re-energizing. If like Rob came and played a show with us, I'm sure he would like really get that energy boost that Vio-Lence gives you.
Damn right it does, man. It's incredible thrash. Just looking at the days ahead, obviously with the new EP dropping, what do you got on the table for Vio-Lence in the days ahead?
So right now I've got I'm working to get into the Trident Studios with Juan to do some demoing of vocals. So we are writing. We have a song written. I just need to track some demo stuff and send it to Christian. Christian moved to Texas, so he's over there by Dallas, Texas right now. But the guy's like a pro with Pro Tools. He's got all the add-ons and drum sounds, and he produced that Dead Kennedy song, Uber Alice, California Uber Alice.
Oh, it sounds great. I heard that this morning. Yeah.
Yeah, he did all that himself. We recorded that in our rehearsal studio.
Oh, it sounds great, man.
Yeah. So it's like, we'll send something to him, and then he'll put some bass tracks on it and clean it up, and maybe a scratch drum track so Perry can envision where we want him to be. And because when we do stuff in the studio together, it's really it's hard because Phil and I, we change a lot of stuff on the fly, and once Perry gets something like memorized, that's typically when we're changing it.
Yeah.
So it kind of drives him crazy. Time, where this method, of working with Pro Tools and sending the digital copies to each other and working with Juan in the studio and stuff, it really expedites the process, I would say.
Sean, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today, man. This has been amazing.
Yeah, no problem, dude. I enjoy talking about the band and the history and thrash metal. And
awesome, buddy. Thank you, man.
All right. Take care.
There he is. That's Sean Killian from the band Vio-Lence. Yeah, man, can you believe they're back? I think it's great, man. The new EP is called Let the World Burn, and it drops on March 4th via Metal Blade Records. I almost set up a whole ton of info up at loadedradio.com as well. But hey, my name is Scott Penfold. We're continuing the podcast now as I'm going to bring on my buddy Johnny Rude from Loaded Radio. He is joining us live from Las Vegas, Nevada. And we're just going to talk about the week that was in heavy music and anything else hard rock and metal related, really. Right, John?
You can hear me, right?
I just spoke with Sean Killian, the frontman for Vio-Lence.
Right, Bay Area thrashers. Yeah.
Some of the originals, man, they've been around since '85. The last Vio-Lence album came out in 1993. It was called Nothing to Gain. They have a real new stuff recording coming out called Let the World Burn. So it was cool talking to him, and it was just cool talking about those old days in the Bay Area thrash scene. And I mean, obviously, you were very familiar with the Los Angeles, the Sunset Strip scene which was huge at the time. But there was this other sort of dirty scene happening up the coast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just it's a heavier scene. That's what was going on up there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that Bay Area metal scene, and it's still there, man. It's known for that.
Man.
Testament and all those guys.
Exodus,
Exodus, all of that. I mean, that's where that thrash, whatever, came out of Cali, man. That was the scene.
It really was. And that's the thing when you think about it too, in the grand scheme of metal, and you and I have talked about this too, is, a lot of credit always goes, to Britain and the new wave of British heavy metal and, certain areas like that. But I mean, I think when it comes to California was such a garden almost of so many great subgenres,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even with that LA scene too, man, I mean, it sort of started with the Van Halen stuff. And even before that with the Doors and the Beach Boys, it goes on. So LA itself has been a mecca for entertainment, music, but place, San Fran, the Bay Area, just a little different. And for some odd reason, man, you go back with the hippies and stuff like that, but it just created a different scene. I think the kids up there saw themselves, and this is my opinion here, hey man, we're not Hollywood foo-foo stuff, man. We want to play heavier music. And sure, it was, again, I highly say influenced by like the Motorheads and the Iron Maidens and the Saxons, but they just took it a little farther and being heavier, because you saw Metallica. They went over and recorded that Diamond Head song.
The Diamond Head, Am I Evil? They covered a lot of those bands that Lars was really into, all like European new wave of British heavy metal.
Right.
Which essentially gave birth to thrash.
Absolutely.
Which was a mix of punk and the new wave of British heavy metal.
That's funny you say that. I was listening to something the other day, and I can't remember, but it was an Iron Maiden song. It was a heavy, again, I can't remember the name, but it was just fast paced. And I'm listening to this going, this was next level punk rock, just played a little better, a lot heavier, and different clothing in a sense. But, you look at Paul Di'Anno, he was a punk rocker. He had the short hair and the safety pins in his ears and stuff like that. Right. But that was the next level of punk rock. It got heavier. It's like music today. It started out a certain way, and you look how far music has come in rock and roll. It's heavy. I mean, the Slipknots and beyond.
Oh, definitely.
But that was what Iron Maiden was, just a heavier version of punk. And then when it got up to the Bay Area, it turned into more technical. The thrash stuff is really just heavy punk, man. And anyways, yes, that was a breeding ground up in San Fran, the Bay Area up there, for these really cool bands that came out. And the thing that's neat, man, is a lot of these bands have stuck around, as opposed to some of the foo-foo bands. Obviously, you grow up, but there's more integrity, I think, with the heavier stuff on a lyrical content.
Yeah.
It just, there's more longevity with it as opposed to, say your Duran Durans or whatever it might be. When you're a kid or kids, they like bands and then they move on to different stuff. If you're a metalhead, man, you stick with it. You don't really veer off the path. You stick with your metal band, like diehard Metallica fans are there, Anthrax fans, and you go to these shows and they're sold out. Not to say that other bands have continued that, but I would say if you're a metal guy, man, you stick with that, and that's what you bleed. You bleed rock and roll and metal.
Yeah. Totally, man. And that really makes me think of something that when it comes to, say, the two different eras that really came out of the Bay Area, with, the hair and the glam metal and then the thrash. I mean, the biggest heavy metal band in the world right now started off as a thrash metal band, and that was Metallica. I mean, without a doubt, they are the hugest metal band in the world right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, but the thing is, when you had Metallica, they rarely, and I mean rarely, sang about chicks. I think nothing else mattered. James wrote that for his then girlfriend or wife at the time, and he didn't even want to record it, but then you go to the lyrical content of, say, the glam era, which 90% of it was about fucking chicks and partying. And maybe just when it comes to the not just the evolvement of society and the way it looks at people, but I think that when maybe just when you're seeing a bunch of old dudes up there singing about, banging some chick in the bathroom stall, but instead of, James Hetfield, I just couldn't see James Hetfield up there singing about that kind of stuff. I mean, it's that power, it's that rawness,
I agree. There's integrity. It's kind of embarrassing when you write something as, say, a 22-year-old, like even, Creeping Death, that was based off, the Ten Commandments. That still transcends. It still applies. It still works. There's a cool factor. Mm-hmm. But if you're singing, me and Susie went down to the gas station and, we bought a box of beer and we drank in a car. I mean, give me a break. You think you could sing that when you're 50 years old? Now, it doesn't apply. You're an asshole. You're a moron.
There's no staying power.
There's no staying power. Again, I think some guys go up there and go, "Oh my God, I got to sing this again. Oh, I feel like a douche."
Oh yeah. She's my baby. She's my hot dog bun,
Right. Well, there's some humorous. I see what
there is.
I like the humor aspect of it, but some of the songs that we play on some of the shows here, that the bygone era. I mean, I listen to some of the lyrics and it's, give me a break. Are you kidding me? And then,
but again, that's not to take away from how much I like the music.
We're not taking away from it.
Yeah,
I'm saying you listen to it and it's still, if you dig that genre, it's definitely cool.
Yeah.
But, I just listened to some of the words and it's like, wow, that's really dated, guys. If you are still touring, like, again, I'll say Cherry Pie by Warrant.
Yeah.
She's my cherry, there's humor with it and you got to get up there night after night and sing that, that can be tough, man. But if you're in Metallica and you're singing Nothing Else Matters or so, there's a different integrity with it. There's different meaning. And there's longevity with stuff like that still applies today. Again, if you take, Chuck Billy and Testament, since we're talking Bay Area stuff, there might be stuff he sang about when he was 22 that doesn't apply, but it's not about banging chicks in the backseat of a car and, eating pizza and whatever. It's different, so, but it's interesting. It's an interesting, when I'm listening to this stuff, I go, wow, man, really, you're going out there and that's what you got to do every night. Sing those goofy lyrics. When you were 20, you wrote it when you're 20.
Speaking of that era, I actually wanted to mention ex-Wasp guitarist Chris Holmes' wife has set up a GoFundMe for his cancer treatments. That he's got cancer of the neck and throat, as a lot of people know by now. And he's 63 years old, and I mean, just one of the awesomest, nicest guys you could ever meet. I love how they named his documentary "Mean Man," when the guy's just so fucking cool, man. Yeah,
that's the stigma. I mean, that's what. He wanted to that was the image, right? That's what he wanted to do. And the unfortunate thing with this Wasp camp and, with Blackie and those guys, Blackie made all the money. He never paid anybody. No one got anything. And, Chris was in the band and wrote riffs and stuff but never got a thing. And the unfortunate thing is, now older. And as you get older, things happen. he's got cancer and he's got no money because he never made a penny. He stated that in many articles. He goes, I never saw a dime, man.
Well, I know that him and Blackie haven't gotten along in years. And actually, I mean, Blackie Lawless, you said that the little Wasp camp does wish him a speedy recovery. But
sure.
I was wondering, I wonder if, Blackie's going to donate to the GoFundMe. I'm curious. That I'm curious about.
Well, I don't know how much money Wasp is making these days either, Scott. So I mean,
they got the big tour coming up with Armored Saint, right? So there's some money coming in.
The big tour, there's some money, but again, it's fleeting when you get some success. That Wasp camp was, from 84 to 88, 89, and then it just started waning. Yeah. So I don't think there's a lot of money there, but it would be cool that if Blackie, because he has found God, if you've read anything about him, he's sort of changed his denomination here. But I think I don't think he's going to send him any money. He'll give him well wishes, but if Chris Holmes can get a GoFundMe thing, because hey man, you need money for these operations, and I don't think Chris Holmes, did anything to help his cause, smoking, drinking, partying, whatever. I mean that's kind of what happens. It comes with the territory.
It certainly does. I think an underrated player and a great guy. And,
absolutely, dude. Underrated. Yeah. His guitar teacher was George Lynch back in the day.
I love that. I think that's so great, man.
Yeah, that's cool, man. But yeah, underrated player. Really a cool guy, man. I met him years ago. Yeah. And saw them years ago. Then he lived out here for a little while. Cool guy, man. But yeah, huge man.
Yeah. Big boy.
Lives over in Europe now.
Again, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And also you can download the Loaded Radio app at loadedradio.com in the app section or wherever you get your apps. And hey, straight up, just check out loadedradio.com constantly for all your hard rock and metal news, constantly updated 24/7. If it's happening, we're on it. And of course, the 24/7 radio station there too. All right, I'm Scott Penfold for Loaded Radio, and we'll talk to you again next week right here on the Loaded Radio podcast.